Forget reindeer. Today the spotlight is on the birds. Are you ready to ruffle some feathers?
Today we're exploring 4 bird card techniques, and I've got a bonus if you stick around as well. This is going to help you use your bird stamps and dies in all kinds of festive designs, if you like cute, classic, funny, even elegant. These birds are going to do it all. Now I'm starting with my easiest idea today, which is to add dimension with die cuts. Now this is a really cute penguin couple and they're really easy to layer up. And I really love cute penguin images on holiday cards. But other birds that you might have in your stash are things like robins, cardinals, doves, partridges. Even we're going to go down a bit of a different track today. You might see something like a chicken or even something Australian. But yeah, you can pretty much use any bird images that you want. Sometimes what I'll do is just add a Santa hat. And I've even added a Santa hat to a flamingo image and used that on a Christmas card design. That was a lot of fun. And if you like a whimsical kind of image, something really cute like these little penguins, they are a lot of fun to add dimension to. So the image itself is multi-layered die cuts, and I have added a very thin foam dot to the scarf, so there's a little bit of dimension there. But my real trick to adding the dimension here are these simple pop-up dies. These are very easy to recreate by just doing some straight cuts on a paper trimmer and some measurements. These dies just make it really easy, but all they are strips of cardstock folded into a rectangle. And this is going to be how we pop the image up on the front of the card, but it also allows the image to be pushed flat, which is going to help with postage. I am using liquid glue here, and because it's a bigger image or a wider image, I'm using 2 little rectangles. The liquid glue just gives a stronger hold because it is a moving part, and that's always my go-to for interactive cards. But I want to add more dimension. This time I've die cut a postage stamp panel for the background, and I want to add the dimension using a 3D embossing folder. But I'm going to step it up a little bit by adding some white ink to the flat side of the embossing folder. So this is the portion that's going to ultimately be the background of the pressed image. You could do the opposite if you like. You could add the ink to the raised side of the embossing folder for a different look. You could also run the cardstock through the machine first and then just add the white ink directly to the cardstock instead of on the embossing folder, if you prefer. I like the way that this white pigment ink gives it almost a frosty look in the background. It's really pretty. Because I have added the pigment ink, I want to make sure that my sentiment and my penguins don't come off the front of the card, so I am using the liquid glue again. I'm just using pre-made sentiment that I had in my stash. That saves time. And I did add some shading to the scarf too, which also adds that look of dimension. So our second idea is another really easy one. We're going to be doing some simple stamping and colouring, adding a bird, but also adding some foliage, because this is going to give somewhere for our birds to perch. And I chose a cockatoo. I know it's not typically what you'd call a Christmas themed bird, but this for me gives it card an Australiana theme because I live in Australia, and this would be a lovely card to send to a friend that lives overseas, or maybe a relative who has a pet cockatoo. That would be fun. But obviously any bird would work here. I'm using some Copic markers and doing some really simple colouring. I don't have coordinating dies for this set, so I'm doing some fussy cutting. And one tip I want to say is that when you're fussy cutting something that has some intricate areas of the design, that's the part or the portion that you want to fussy cut first. It's much easier to do this when you've got the rest of the cardstock to hold on to than leave that finicky bit till last. It's a game changer. And also, because I've cut along the line, I want to hide that rough sort of edge of the white cardstock. So I've got a black marker here. It's not a Copic one, or it's not an alcohol marker, because that will bleed into the cardstock. And I just run that along the edge to hide that white cut. Wreaths are a really fun and easy way to give somewhere for your birds to perch. Anything sort of greenery works on a holiday card design for bird images. So I think wreaths, branches, even flowers would work, like a poinsettia or a Christmas tree. There are so many ways that you can ground your bird images in foliage. Now this is another really easy way to colour in an image. I have stamped a wreath and using the coordinating stencils here to add colour. Because I'm going to pop this up, I did die cut too, and I don't show this all the time, but typically if I'm going to pop anything up off the front of the card, I like to double it up just to add a little bit more stability. I'm using the liquid glue here as well. And this is going to be a very clean and simple card, so I thought it'd be fun to add an element in the background, like a border, a die cut border. It's a very intricate wreath, and if I did want to colour this with my alcohol markers, it would take me an age, but literally probably 4 or 5 minutes I had this wreath all coloured in and cut out. Stencils have been a game changer when it comes to adding some colour, especially if you are your hands shake or you aren't confident with colouring something in. And can I just say, wreaths aren't just for Christmas. And my next idea, which you'll often see me use, is to create a scene. Now this is one of my classic stamps. I like to call it the Chickens of Christmas. That's not its real name. I don't even know if it's still available. It's one of my original stamps and I just adore it. I think I only have 2 woodblock stamps and this is one of them. It's a penny black image. And to stamp a scene such as this, I want anything that's going to be at the front to be stamped first, which is going to be my chickens. I've re-stamped that on a mask, fussy cut that out and laid the mask over top. And I thought it'd be fun to add a little scene of buildings behind my chickens. So I've used Memento ink because I am going to be using alcohol markers here again, but you could stamp them in whatever you like and colour them however you like. I wanted to make this a little bit quicker because colouring can take time, so I used my ink blending tools to add some really quick shading to both the sky and to the ground. And I love how the scene is revealed when you start to remove masks. I didn't even bother to mask the buildings here when I ink blended the top of the cardstock because I knew I wasn't going to be a problem with the colouring. But I have a smudge on this cardstock and I was really struggling with because I wanted to keep the sky very clean and simple. And I'll walk you through how I fix it in just a moment. But you could make a scene, like birds can fit into so many different scenes. And the great thing about using masking on cards is it does keep the layers down. It can be a labour of love, especially if you do a lot of colouring. But that's where if you've got, like say something that you've got stencils for and you could stencil colour a background, that would definitely speed things up. Another idea is to leave things as line art. You don't have to colour everything. I just felt like colouring today. And my original colour palette here didn't involve any sort of blues. That's why I thought it'd be fun just to use the light earthy tones for the sky. But wait till you see the next cards. You're going to see, I should have just gone for blue in the sky and that would have covered my mark. But anyway, you live and learn. I added some grass. I do this just using some pencils. And these are wax-based pencils, so I can add a little bit of extra dimension and add to my scene with some Gamsol and a blending stump. And you can take this to town. Pardon the pun. But you can do as much or as little as you want when it comes to scene building. So I die cut this down to make a panel for the front of the card and grabbed one of the larger sentiments, but it still wasn't going to cover up my smudge in the top left hand corner. I don't even know if you can see it, but it was bothering me. But it's in the top left hand corner of the panel. Now the birds do have like little I don't even know what they're called, like the singing, the clefs and the no, someone smarter than me knows. Yeah, these little singing notes, that's it. And I thought I'd come in and add a few of those and some stars, because there were stars above the houses. I hated it. It was horrible. It was just too much. I couldn't live with that. So this is my fix. I decided to fussy cut across the top of the buildings, and I recut the panel, like that same size panel, because this is being cut out with a rectangle die, like a nesting die. It made it really easy to get the exact same size for the panel. And I probably should have just come in with a different color and done the sky, but this seemed to work. It was a good fix, and I still kept it fairly I didn't pop this. I was tempted, I suppose you could say, after cutting it out, but I didn't pop this up. I just actually adhered it directly to the front of the panel using some liquid glue. And I layered up my sentiment just to give it some strength, but I also popped it up with some dimensional foam. And if you know me, you may already know that I have chickens and they're a lot of fun. The next way we're going to bring the birds to life is by doing some no-line colouring. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is a press plate, so it's not a stamp, but you stamp it by running it through a die cutting machine. And you don't have to have the special inks. I've just used a regular dye ink to do this because I want most of this image, I'm going to colour over most of the image. I'm basically using it as a guide, like it's telling me where I need to add my colour. This particular bird is a chickadee, and I wanted to make it a robin. So, like I said, you don't have to use the birds as they're intended. You can change them up. And to make it a robin, I added the red and the brown by stamping the brown and then colouring over top. No line colouring can be done with pencils, markers. I mostly prefer pencils over ink, especially when there's this much ink on an image, but you can use whatever medium you prefer. I usually start colouring lightly, especially with pencils, because they can get they can fill the tooth of the paper and then you can't really get away with adding anymore. So if you colour very lightly, then you can always add a little bit more. And that way you can add lots of layers as well and add extra depth. And don't be afraid to come in and add some extra shading as well. I'll often come in with a black pencil after I've done all of my colouring. That way it will give more dimension and make it look a little bit more realistic. But this bird is just beautiful, and I really like how it turned out with the robin colours. The gamsol really smoothed out and made the red portion of the robin look really smooth and really pretty, but I didn't actually use it when it came to the feathers because I wanted to keep the detail on those feathers. I also used the coordinating die to cut this out, and I am going to pop it up, so I added a second layer. I wanted a sort of rough style background, like a night sky almost. So I did some really rough blending. Don't worry, it's going to be mostly hidden, but a watercolor background would look really pretty here as well. I've die cut some pine leaves and adding some extra shading with some ink to make it have more dimension or more depth. And then I splattered some white ink and also some white glossy media ink because I was struggling to get the white to show up on the green. I think maybe the ink was still wet when I was doing this, but it worked really well with this glossy medium. And I attached the panels to the front of the card and also a couple of these leaves, and then added some dimension just on the sentiment and also on the robin. I like the look of the branches or the pine leaves coming off the edge of the card, but if you prefer, it would look just as pretty had it been cut off where the panel is itself. And adding that dimension, everything else is stuck directly to the card. It's minimal dimension on this design. But I just love the color of that blue in the background. And if I had a thought of it, I would have put that on the previous card. Live and learn. And this style of card is a bit more traditional and has more of an elegance to it. And I did promise you a bonus card. Yes, this is one little frustrated, is he? He's not very happy, this owl. My sister is owl obsessed. So if I can get an owl image, that card is always going to end up for her. So this little grumpy owl is going to be hers. And I thought it'd be fun to make him into a word. Well, not him on his own. We're going to be adding some letters to make a sentiment. Now, this is a really fun technique, something that I do a lot, especially with critter cards. And if you don't have any large letters or large stamps or die letters that you could do this with, another option would be to sit a bird on top of a word, something that is like a focal point for a card, and then have the bird on top, or even sitting within the word, that would work, or on the bottom of a low-hanging letter, like a Y. I don't know what that is. I used to. And like I said before, add a Santa hat and any image can be made Christmassy. But what I thought I'd do was create my own design paper with some fun strips of cardstock, and I just thought this grumpy little owl would be perfect as the center of the word joy. If you don't want to create your own design paper stripes like I've done here, this is just using some A4 adhesive. You can do this with tape runner on a piece of paper as well, that would work. Just use some design paper or design cardstock instead, or even just plain colors would work. I just wanted to step this up a little bit and use the same colors that I've been playing with on all of these designs. I also die cut a negative frame window, and I'll link everything that is still available that I can find either in the description or head to my blog. That will be linked in the description as well. Otherwise, just reach out. Some of these supplies are a little bit older, but the techniques are there. If you've got a bird image, you can certainly play with what you have in your stash and have some similar results. So I added some dimension to the frame because I can't help myself, and also to the letters. I brought that teal color into the background here again, which I thought was really pretty. And of course, had to pop up the Santa hat. Now he's all Christmassy. He still looks grumpy though, but I thought this sentiment worked really well for this fun image. Other words that you could try, other than joy, you could use the words like Noel, holly, snow, even ho ho ho, although I'd probably only do one letter with an image. And all together now, starting with our first idea, which was to add dimension with the die cuts. So these images, these little penguins, are popped up off the front of the card, but they can be pushed fairly flat for postage. And there's also dimension in the background. Our second idea was to do some simple stamped colouring and added the foliage. I mean, really any foliage would work with a bird, but this time we've added a wreath. Then we've got some easy scene building. Well, it wasn't so easy because I mucked it up, but it's fairly one layer except for the sentiment here. And I've added some shiny beaks to the chickens. And then we came in and did some no-line pencil colouring and did a more sort of classical, elegant Christmas design. Lots of very different cards here today. And the bonus idea, which was to substitute a bird for a letter in a sentiment. And we use the word joy. And doesn't that owl look happy? Let me know if you have a favourite today in the comments below, or if you're going to try any of these techniques. I'd love to see what you make. And don't go anywhere, because I've got 2 more videos here from my previous Same But Different Christmas card series, and I look forward to seeing you there. And if you liked today's video, don't forget to click on the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? It's totally free. I look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Till then, happy paper crafting. Bye.